Hey, everybody. Sorry for being a little late. Thanks for dealing with us as we're figuring out technical difficulties in the new space. So glad you're with us. Tonight's going to be a blast as we spend a couple hours celebrating some of the very best athletes to ever suit up in the green and gold and compete for Baylor University. I promise we will banter, we will laugh, and we will do our best to make it a really fun evening for you. But I wanted to start tonight by remembering and honoring J.J. Joe and inviting you to join me in prayer for his family and friends. There is an entire team of Baylor Bears putting the stream together tonight. And I speak for all of us when I say that the news of J.J. Joe's passing was heartbreaking and painful. There was a shared disbelief that someone so full of life would be taken from us far too soon. J.J. is one of Baylor's best football players of all time and was a wildly talented and entertaining radio analyst on the broadcast of Baylor football for the past 21 seasons. But beyond that, he represented everything we value as a Baylor family: graciousness, sincerity, hospitality, servant leadership, and Christian faith. In fact, when I think of how the Bible defines godly character with the words love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control, I think those words aptly describe the kind of man J.J. Joe was and the kind of legacy he leaves behind. As a new parent, he is the kind of human I want my daughter to look up to and be like when she grows up. We have several former Baylor football players who are going to be part of tonight's episode. J.J. Joe was one of them meant to be here this evening. And he is part of this March Madness tournament field that we're going to roll out. He is part of tonight's episode because he is deserving of recognition as one of the best to ever take the field as a Baylor Bear. And out of respect for him and his desire to participate in this episode, we didn't take his name out of the bracket or reseed him after news of his passing. Not only was JJ supposed to join us this evening, but he had reached out to me to let me know he'd also been praying for me. I never met JJ in person, only interacting with him online and via text, but that's the kind of man he was, praying for me before we were even friends. And I was thrilled he was going to come on this show tonight, and I was eager to meet him in person soon. And though I never knew him closely, I already miss him. Before and after every Baylor football game, we sing that good old Baylor line. And we all sing, "We'll fling our green and gold afar to light the ways of time." JJ was a light during his time. And though his time on earth is gone, he's now in the presence of light himself. And I feel confident in this. JJ is still flinging his green and gold afar, even in heaven. And as I tweeted the morning the news broke, I hope when I meet him there, he'll throw me a pass. JJ, we love you, we thank you for your life, and we miss you. I want to play a couple of JJ's most famous radio calls, and then we'll honor him.
15 seconds to go. Griffin steps up, slides to the left side. He's throwing for the end zone.
Touchdown!
Oh, it's caught!
Oh, my goodness!
Touchdown, Bears! Touchdown, Baylor! Oh, it's caught by Terrence Williams! 4th down and goal from the 1. Handoff, running left, trying to get to the corner. He did get there! He did get there! He stopped short! He is stopped short of the goal line! Bears hold the Cowboys out of the end zone! Baylor's going to take over!
We're going to take a minute, and I'd ask you to pray for J.J. Joe's loved ones. And after a minute of silence and prayer, we'll cue up that theme song and get Please Bear With Me launched. But until then, just join me in a minute of reflection and prayer. Thanks. We're here. We did it. Oh my gosh. Please bear with me on Rogue Media. I'm so happy you're here with us tonight on YouTube. My name's Scotty Swingler. Travis, throw up that lower thirds graphic, man. Travis Corley, everybody, running the ship, having never operated StreamYard before, is doing an outstanding job. Man, we're so happy to be back. In case you are new to the family, this was a podcast I started in 2017. I created it and hosted it from 2017 to 2020 and then handed it off to Travis. And I'm so excited that, as you can see in that lower third graphic, I will not be hosting this show alone. I wasn't ever going to do this by myself. I want to introduce to you a man you know and love, a Baylor legend in his own right, Mr. Terrence Ganaway.
Scotty, thank you so much. You give me way too much credit. I don't know if anyone knows me or loves me, but I do love Travis off camera. He has definitely simmered the room down a little bit. But, man, what a pleasure to be here in Waco at the Alico building.
That's right.
With some of my best friends in this industry to just talk about Snub City. I think we know a little bit about that, but we got a guest appearance from Brody Trahan with his jersey behind Scotty. That was his graduation present. In all seriousness, I joined this podcast a couple of times when Scotty hosted it the first time. It was a privilege and an honor to just jump back in with him. We're all busy, but we wanted to really throw something together that not only we can have fun doing, but also you can enjoy listening. So I'm excited about this season. And I'm excited about this deck we got today.
Let's go, man. I want to introduce in the producer's chair, operating the mothership, having no prior experience on such a thing. He's crushing it. The host of Please Bear With Me for 2021 and 2022, Mr. Travis Corley. Hello, sir.
Hello, sir. It's great to be back.
You're back.
I'm back. We're back. We're all back.
We did it.
Better than ever, too.
We made it.
Adding some legitimacy to the pod.
Mama, we made it.
I don't know if we're adding legitimacy, having the technical difficulties we've had so far tonight.
Hey,
we're adding something. We're adding something. And in the guest chair on my right, Mr. Michael Bartlemy, frequent contributor to the old show. Just happy to be here tonight.
Hey, I'm just here so I don't get fined. But no, on the real though, you might know me as the person that Scotty calls when he can't figure out who his guest is and needs someone who's able to talk for 45 minutes straight. So here I am.
Here we go. Here's what we're doing, guys. We're going to run this show for 6 weeks this spring. Part of that is to get the kinks out of the system, the technical issues you've already seen tonight, get everything set up and going. But part of what we're doing for these 6 weeks, it's March, right? And everyone does this with every kind of topic, is you create a March Madness bracket. And so we figured, why not create a March Madness bracket to determine the greatest Baylor football player ever? That's what we're doing here. And you may think, Mr. Scotty, the answer is quite obvious. And I would tell you, that's not the point. It's actually not the point. One, the answer may not be as obvious as you think. Depending on if your person went to Baylor pre-90s or post-90s, there might be a different answer to that question. But also, it's about the matchups and the banter and the fun that this creates, comparing players from across eras, across generations, celebrating Baylor football. And we are going to determine who wins this by fan vote. And so tomorrow at 8 a.m., I'll post on Twitter and in this YouTube description the link to go vote. You will be able to vote on every matchup in this round and moving forward, and we will determine from your voice who is the best Baylor football player ever. Question for the room. Who is one player that you really hope to see in this bracket as we reveal the full thing tonight?
I mean, I think I'll start out. If I'm not in this bracket, I might flip some tables. We're not going to be worried about technical difficulties if I'm not in this bracket. But I do believe there's going to be some people here that are going to be a little bit surprising, and then there's going to be some people that didn't make it. And I just want to say that Scotty put a lot of work into this, and so if you're not on this list, that doesn't mean you're not a Baylor great or a Baylor legend. This is going to facilitate confrontation,
maybe confrontation
and conversation. But I better be on this, and I better not be a 16 seat.
I was just going to say that I think if you're not on this list, it's probably just because Scotty doesn't like you personally, and you should take it personally.
Yes.
Don't.
That's what it's about.
Please.
No, the person that I'm most hoping to see is Eddie Lackey, because he is probably, for me, one of my personal favorite Baylor greats, and during our time in school, one of my favorite players.
Travis?
Yeah, I got to hop in here. Man, Daniel Sepulveda, like, talk about a guy who kind of played for some Baylor teams that may have not been the greatest Baylor teams of all time, but still found a way to shine out. So I'm really hoping Sepulveda's going to make the field here.
All right, and here's what we did. I did take nominations. I asked for nominations on Twitter, so some of you nominated folks to be in this field. I'll let you know when some of those nominees are introduced. We're going to get straight into it. We divided this bracket into 4 regions, just like March Madness in the NCAA basketball tournament, and we are going to reveal the first region now. The first region is called the Hits region, and it features linebackers and safeties. And guys, I just want to say before we introduce these names that if there are any names missing, it is because I think this is Baylor's legacy spot. Oh, don't reveal the bracket yet, Travis. No!
I'm just teasing.
New producer, man. They can pause the video, Travis. My gosh. We gotta be more. We gotta hold our cards
They won't do it.
closer
They won't
to
do
our
it.
chest.
We need to fine him. Let's make sure we give him a fine. But he did order pizza for us, so give him grace, Scott.
Yeah, Travis
We'll
did
put
order
$1 in
pizza
the jar.
for us
We'll put
today.
$1 in the jar.
That's right. That's right. So here's the deal. I think this is Baylor's legacy position. If you ask most folks, the position at which Baylor has been the most deep over time, I think linebacker and safety each kind of contend for that. We did have a play-in matchup for this region between Clay Johnston and Maurice Lane, and Clay Johnston won the fan vote in a landslide. And in the first matchup in the Hits region, he will take on who might be Baylor's GOAT. I'll just put my cards on the table, Mr. Mike Singletary, the great Mike Singletary, not only a college football Hall of Famer, but an NFL Hall of Famer. Now, all of us kind of grew up after Mike Singletary played. What did you guys hear about Mike Singletary growing up when you guys were coming through?
Well, the guy was just a baller, man. I think when you think about just defensive greats in the Southwest Conference and what he was able to do and accomplish, he put records way out of reach for any player in the conference, in the country for that matter, and obviously left a legacy of hard-hitting, very instinctful football, and definitely one of the all-time greats who's going to be hard. I know he's going against Clay Johnston, but he's going to be hard to beat in any bracket, in any region.
Absolutely. Let's get through the rest of these matchups fairly quickly. Second seed in the Hits region, we have Thomas Everett. If you did not know, Thomas Everett, the first ever Jim Thorpe Award winner, one of Baylor's all-time greats, also won Super Bowls with the Dallas Cowboys, and he goes up against, there he is, Michael Bartolome, Mr. Eddie Lackey. Any words on Eddie Lackey?
I just wanted to say we should bring back those jerseys that Everett's wearing right there. But also, this is just unfair to Eddie Lackey to have to go against Thomas Everett. This is ridiculous.
It's a deep position group, my friend.
Unfair.
Maybe most of you could probably predict the 3 seed of Singletary's 1 and Everett's 2. The 3 seed is Mr. Jalen Petrie, of course, the one who stayed, just an iconic football player, a Jim Thorpe Award runner-up his senior season, has had a great NFL career so far with the Houston Texans, and he goes up against another very hard-hitting safety who played near the line a lot, Mr. Ahmad Dixon, Waco's own Ahmad Dixon. The number 4 seed in this region is Joe Pavelik, the great linebacker from those Guy Morris teams. Of course, an iconic interception against Colorado at the goal line to win Baylor's only conference game in a very long time. Joe Pavelik, a legendary player in a tough era for Baylor football, going up against Bryce Hager, one of those great defensive captains from those great Art Briles teams. The number 5 seed in the Hits region is James Francis. James Francis, this is my favorite stat about Francis, holds the record for most blocked kicks in a season. He had 6 blocked field goals in a season, guys, against, again, Waco's own, Midway High School's own, Orion Stewart. Any thoughts on one of these guys?
Man, it's going to be really hard to beat Francis. He's such a transformational player, a great player, ran to the ball, had a ton of interceptions, a ton of tackles, made plays on special teams. It's going to be hard to beat. Orion Stewart was great. Only thing I remember, one of the big things I remember about Orion Stewart is Patty Mahomes beat us up down there in Arlington, and after the game, Orion Stewart says, "Man, I suck." And but everyone has probably got beat up by Patrick Mahomes at this stage in their career, both college and professional. Orion Stewart's a great athlete, but James Francis is probably going to get my vote out of those two picks.
I'll tell you, as a guy who grew up in Waco with Baylor attending parents, my dad talks about James Francis more than he talks about any other former Baylor football player. Like, the dude was a freak. The dude was a basketball player. We're going to have Alan Lefevre talk about him more in a second. I won't gush on. The 6th seed in the hits region is Robert Blackman, and he goes up against Jordan Lake, two of the best safeties in school history. Blackman known as a ball hawk who could force a lot of turnovers. Jordan Lake known as a guy that could lay the wood, just knocking dudes out left and right, forcing fumbles. Outstanding safeties there. The 7 seed in this region is Van McElroy. I'll be honest, I don't know a lot about Van, except he had a long and distinguished NFL career with the Oakland Raiders. I think he's also maybe top 3 or 4, maybe number 1 or 2 in turnovers forced in Baylor's history. And he goes up against Taylor Young, and I couldn't use another photo other than this one, laying Baker Mayfield out there. Taylor Young, of course, the outstanding 4-year starter at linebacker. And then the 8th seed is Mike Welch, another safety who forced a ton of turnovers, going up against the great Terrell Bernard. Terrell Bernard really coming to life his junior and senior seasons, especially that senior season, of course, when he won a Big 12 championship. Now let's show that bracket graphic, Travis. There it is, the hits region. Guys, let's take about 2 minutes. Tell me your reaction to the way this fell.
Man, I really think that you could look at everybody from almost 6 through 15, and you could split them up however which way you wanted to, because all of them are multi-time all-conference. Some of them are all-Americans, super distinguished. And I just like all the way down. It's a murderer's row. Scotty, I think you're 100% right. This group is so deep.
It is a very deep group. What a weird stat is, I played football at the University of Houston for a year with James Francis. And then I transferred to Baylor, and I played with Chris Francis. So I got to see those two guys play, and if they modeled anything after their dad, they knew football. They had a nose for football, and they had heavy heads. I mean, you run up in the middle of the line against those guys, you always had a headache. But I think if you look at this field, this region, Mike Singletary is going to be hard to beat, and it's the reason why he's number 1.
Yeah, I gotta jump in here and say and agree with you. Mike Singletary is going to be very, very difficult to beat. The amount of helmets that he broke that I heard about, that's like the number one thing I've heard about Michael Singletary is the number of helmets that he broke. But I've got to come in here and have the backs of my midway guys. Ahmad Dixon being 14 seed in the hits bracket is wild. Ahmad Dixon is one of the hardest hitting players I've ever seen play, and I got to watch him do it for a lot of the time at Midway High School, and then going up to Baylor.
No shade, but Jordan Lake hits even harder. Hey, okay, this is why this is fun. This is awesome. Okay, this is what was so tough. I'll just tell you, when I constructed this, all these guys would be other schools like in their top. Like this is the position where I feel like Baylor is not behind a lot of schools. Like, a lot of these guys would be in most schools' top 16 players at these positions ever. It's just a deep, deep group. So here's what we're going to do to help contextualize some things for us tonight. I've got Dr. Alan Lefevre joining us for a couple of segments. He is the author of The History of Baylor Sports, and he's going to give us some perspective on some of these guys that maybe we did not get to watch play. I'm going to throw it right now to Dr. Alan Lefevre.
It's Mike Singletary. You know, it's the guy who broke the helmets. It's the guy who I saw hit a TCU quarterback so hard my freshman year, I thought he killed him. You know, it's the samurai eyes. Singletary set the standard for linebackers, middle linebackers in college football and in pro football for decades. When they talk about Ray Lewis, I don't think you could talk about Ray Lewis without talking about Mike Singletary. Because I don't think you get a Ray Lewis without Mike Singletary. No one of this generation can fully appreciate James Francis. I think he's one of the top defenders we ever had. his size, his speed. He dominated the field. Between he and Blackman, those were two key players of what I think is maybe the greatest defense that no one knows about in the 1989 Bears. His body was amazing. He looked like a Greek god. He was 6'5", 230. 240. They never toyed with making him an end. Today, we'd probably make him an end. And not a linebacker, but he played an outside linebacker in our defense, which meant he was in pass coverage all the time. I mean, it just wasn't selective. He covered the tight end out of the backfield, the running back out of, or the tight end off the line, the running back out of the backfield. And had the speed to do it. The fact that he blocked the kicks that he did, the fact that he was a dual sport athlete. Scott Drew would salivate because he was Mark Vital. He was that type of player. Robert Blackman was a game changer. Robert Blackman and James Francis both during that 89 defense. Again, if they would have been around in the portal age, somebody would have paid them millions of dollars to leave Baylor and go play for them. That team, our offense was so bad that at the end of the season, I told somebody we were playing UT, and somebody said, "Well, what are our chances?" I said, "Well, our defense is going to have to score 3 touchdowns to win that game." And Robert Blackman ran 2 touchdowns back, or 2 interceptions back for touchdown to start the game, basically. It was like, God, that's exactly it. And we so dominated, beat Texas 50-7. I think that's what set him apart from others. His anticipation of the ball was something that you would just look at it and think, man, this dude has it. He fooled people enough they kept throwing in his direction. They think, oh, he's not there, and then he was. And the Texas game was a great example. You throw that first interception, okay, things like that happen, but he baited him into the second.
Okay, so here's what we're going to do the rest of the night. I think we've got at least one person, I'm hoping he's there, who is part of the Hits region joining us. And since Michael Bartlemay has already been giving him so much love, we want to welcome into the stream Mr. Eddie Lackey, sir. Hello.
Man, I just appreciate the love, Michael.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. I'm so excited. This is really cool.
just honored to make the list.
Oh, come on, be serious. You would have been upset if you hadn't made the list, Eddie.
Yeah.
Okay, Eddie, here's the thing. Michael already scolded me for this before the show. You go up against a guy in Thomas Everett, who was the school's first Thorpe Award winner, unbelievable NFL player, as well as a great Baylor Bear. Why should people vote for you over Thomas Everett?
I don't know how I can make that case, but considering after the fact he goes and wins 2 Super Bowls and had a pretty awesome career in the NFL too. But I think I had a lot of tenacity. So if you rewind the tape and you watch what I did on the field, a lot of times I was bringing the wood. I was bringing the heavy hits that we're calling this, and I think I more came in from the playmaker standpoint, and interceptions and turnovers and that kind of thing. I love to hit people. I think that was a lot of fun for me, but ultimately I think it was the turnovers and tackle for losses, those kind of things that made me the player that I was, the instincts. So I don't think I was bringing the hits the same at the same level as Michael Singletary, but hey, I definitely brought it. And just a quick funny story is Coach Gush I've told this before, but when I was getting recruited, I was considered a midget in his terms, and Coach Bennett, and I wore these thick Air Force Ones on my recruiting visit, and the last day he had me stand up, go back to back with him, and he was like, "You're not even 6 foot." You said your recruiting profile and your coaches even stood in the gap for you and said that you were 6'1", 6'2". And so yeah, I'm barely 5'11" on a good day. And that was one thing that Coach Gush asked me. He turned around and he was like, "But I don't care if you're willing to meet a 6'2", 250-pound fullback at UT in the A gap. I'm good with it. As long as you give me your word as a man to man, let's go." And so I think I lived up to it, and I was a man of my word when I was at Baylor. I'd like to say, but I don't know if I was breaking people's helmets like Mike Singletary was, or even Thomas Everett, I'm sure.
Man, well, I think you made a very compelling case for yourself, Eddie, and you were one of my favorite players. You played while I was a student, so lots of good memories for me of those turnovers you forced and standing guys up in the gap. I want to introduce, maybe you guys haven't met before, this is Jordan Lake, who's also part of our bracket. Jordan, what's going on, man?
There he is.
How's it going, Al?
Good. He's got that broad chin, man. Just a handsome individual.
Listen. So Eddie Lackey, one of my favorite players to watch when I was a student. Jordan Lake, one of my favorite players to watch when I was in high school. Jordan, you were named the Big 12's hardest hitter. You were a guy who was just known for knocking dudes out over the middle. And I think we've talked before when you came on Please Bear With Me in the past that, like, your style of game is almost the kind of thing they've tried to get out of the game. Tell Baylor fans why they should vote for you in this bracket.
No, it's 100% what they're trying to get out of the game. If you play like I played back in the day, then you're out by the end of the first quarter. Time is passing by. Father Time's undefeated, but for a time and place, it was able to come across the middle and make people fear, trying to pass on Baylor's defense.
Yeah, and again, like your accolades listed there, I think people forget the kind of career you had just because those teams weren't so good, right? Eddie's got some Big 12 championship rings somewhere, So what was it like? Just how did you bring that kind of intensity night after night when it was hard to find team success during some of those years?
All you can do is as a player is go out and contribute to the team as best you can. Like Bill Belichick said, do your job. And so all we can do is worry about taking care of what I can take care of and help my teammates out. And, hopefully it works out for us in the end. And unfortunately it didn't. But people from my generation like to say that we laid the foundation for Robert and Eddie and TG and all those guys to keep going beyond us and have the program ascend to where it got to.
Big time. Absolutely. Okay, so for both of you guys, I want you to answer two questions. Your favorite defensive player to watch at Baylor besides yourself, and then your favorite on-field memory for Baylor.
I'll go first because Eddie probably has a better one than I do since he won more than I do. So I'll say my favorite player to watch on the field was Joe P. Having that guy in front of me was unbelievable. I mean, seeing him go from sideline to sideline, take on blocks, shed blocks, find a way to be in every single tackle was amazing. And my favorite on-field memory, little known fact about me, but I wanted to actually go to A&M when I was in high school, and they told me that I didn't fit the criteria for their typical safeties. And my favorite memory was 2008. We beat them 41-21 in Waco, and all of Floyd Casey was counting down the seconds as we took them down that day.
I love a beat Texas A&M memory. There's some more of those coming tonight, I think. Eddie, what about you?
That's tough. But I just keep coming. I know this works the case against me, because he's in the same bracket. But Ahmad Dixon, man, I know I played with him, but we'd rewind the tape and just watching him in practice and the motor that he had was unreal. But it was the energy that he had too. He brought an energy to our defense that I feel like he's not just like a replaceable kind of individual. Ahmad's pretty unique, and I think he would admit that. But it was great to play with him. But ultimately, just watching him, he could bring the hits. I mean, he was responsible for a couple of those penalties that we're talking about, and I think that rule change happened for getting ejected and the targeting stuff in 2013. So it was our senior year. So I think we saw him, get booted from a few different games. But that was just the way he played, and it was fun to watch and fun to be a part of with him. And it's hard. I feel like it changes every time somebody asks me this question: is what's my favorite moment? And I think I say something different every time. But first thing that comes to mind, I think, is the blackout game Thursday night in Waco. Beating them, yes, but my interception that I had right before halftime, I think it was just a big momentum shifter. And I think if there was a bracket for loudest time, loudest moment in a stadium, I'd be willing to say that was probably it at Baylor or in Baylor history.
Man, guys, that is awesome. Thank you so much for sharing with Baylor fans. I want both of you guys to come back this fall on the show and break down some defense for me. And I'll just tell you, I'll show my cards. I'm rooting for you. Terrence Ganaway's got a question for you real quick, guys.
Am I live, Travis?
You're live.
Eddie, was that the game that you had a hot mic yourself, where you slammed some quarterback down to the ground and you said some very fruitful words? Is that the same game that I'm thinking about?
I don't know. This is the first I'm hearing of it. If I did, I don't remember being on a hot mic ever.
I don't know what clip you're talking about.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Eddie's on the
Please,
he hit
it's
this
like
Thursday
me,
night
because I'd
against
like to know
OU.
if there's just this hot mic out there.
Yeah, I don't know. ESPN had a mic flying over the game, man, and you slam a guy down. You say, "Sit down, B word." And it's all on TV. You never heard that? I'm gonna find that clip and send it to you.
Please.
Yeah.
I'd like to know.
Obviously, don't play it in front of your kids.
Sit down, Baylor.
Yeah, sit down, Baylor. That's what you said.
Individual then.
Hey, listen. I didn't get to play with you, Eddie. You came right after me, but Jordan, I agree with you. Watching Joe Paul, you, Francis, and all those guys that set the foundation. We didn't have the wins that we needed to have, but man, it was such an honor to play with you. My question before we go, Jordan, we were arguing about this earlier. The best safety in Baylor's history. Some in this room think it's you. Do you believe you're the best safety in Baylor's history?
I mean, you got to have the wins to back it up, and we didn't. So I'd like to think I'm in that conversation. Appreciate that I'm in the conversation. But I'll tip my cap and let it go to somebody else. I've never seen James Francis play, but man, even when I was there in the 05 through 09 seasons, people were still talking about Francis.
Yeah, I agree.
Good stuff, guys. Hey, guys, thank you so much. I'll have both of you back on this fall.
All right, thanks for having us.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, guys. Hey, real quick, want to tell you that speaking of hits, Fabled's got him. Hey, Fabled here in Waco is helping. Please bear with me. Come back. What we're going to do with Fabled is I've got this awesome mug, and there's a $25 gift card in here, and you will have a chance to win that later this spring if you will subscribe to Please Bear With Me on YouTube. If you're here in Waco, man, I don't even know why you'd want to go to a Barnes & Noble. Fabled, shop local, great bookstore. They got coffee. They got beer in there if you want to grab a drink while you shop. They got this cool kids room. You walk through a wardrobe just like the books. You can get your kids some books. My little girl loves going in there. She's 8 months old and already loves Fabled. Just want to encourage you to check out Fabled. Hey, we got a couple guys waiting in the wings for this next region because we're a little behind schedule. So let's just get into it. We had the hits region first. Now I want to present you with the big men region. The big men region. And oh my goodness, two of the big men are already on the screen. We got to show them the bracket first, Travis. We got to show them the bracket first.
Yeah, let's see what
Say hello, guys. Say hello, guys.
Hey, hello. Thanks for having us on.
Hey, good. We'll get back to you guys in a sec.
Travis Corley, first-time show producer, is having a blast over there at the Wheels of Steel.
Efficiency is the name of the game.
We love it.
You're doing a great job, Travis.
Thank you.
I believe in
thank
you.
you.
Is my
Thank
third
you.
is my third guest in there too?
Why are you asking me questions, man? You know I don't know the answer. I don't know.
Okay. I'm hoping there's 3 guests in this region. We'll find out. Terrence, I feel like we talk about line units a lot. Like when you think of the Eagles winning the Super Bowl, we talked about their defensive line a lot, but we don't talk about individuals a lot. And so this is a chance to spotlight some of the individuals on both the offensive and defensive lines for Baylor. How do we evaluate line play as fans and participants in football when we can't Google a guy's stats to determine how good they are?
Yeah, I mean, when you think about some of these guys that were dominant, and there's some special team guys in this region as well, it's easier to evaluate defensive stats versus offensive stats. Because sometimes a guy can protect a quarterback all his career, but not get a pancake, not be highlighted all the time. But they are super critical. And I think now with NIL, those are probably some of the highest sought out players, because they can disrupt a game or they can keep someone healthy and playing at a high level. So when I look at offensive linemen, I look at someone who's not going to get down on themselves, vocal leader, someone who has a ton of grit, and then defensive lineman, someone who at the end of the game, their gas, offense running at tempo, is having the that little bit of fire to say, I have one play left and it can change the outcome of this game. And when you look at each of these names, from Andrew Billings, who I'm pretty sure he's going to be on here, to guys like Phil Taylor that I play with, Danny Watkins, I hope he's on this field of play as well. But JD, Jason Smith, who after left Baylor, I came into Baylor, and he would come back and he would still work out with us at a high level and communicate, still vocal leaders. And when you have that, you start to build a legacy, which we were able to do. And I think Baylor is still benefiting from it. But offensive line and defensive line play is huge. Thank you for the shout out for my Philadelphia Eagles. Fly birds.
Gross. Let's run through this bracket and we'll get to our guest. Then the number, and I will tell you, because it's hard to evaluate line play, I did not feel super confident in the way I seeded all of this, but I felt very confident about the number 1 seed. Because in the number 1 seed, taking on Connor Galvin, who won the play-in matchup against Kari Long, we have Mr. Andrew Billings. If you ask me, that is the most dominant guy on either side of the ball. Andrew Billings is our number 1 seed. He'll take on Connor Galvin. Again, these are fan vote determined matchups. You'll have to vote this week. In the 2 seed, we do have someone Terrence just mentioned, Mr. Jason Smith, the number 2 overall draft pick left tackle, going up against Matt Rule Project, the beast inside, Bravion Roy. Number 3 in this bracket is James Lynch, school's all-time leading sack master, going up against Phil Taylor, who Ganaway mentioned as well, another big guy on that defensive interior run stopper. Phil Taylor going up against James Lynch. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to announce the 4 seed in the big man region, Mr. Daniel Sepulveda. Listen, there's not going to be an entire region of 16 special teamers, but Daniel Sepulveda was a 6'3" walk-on linebacker who became the first ever 2-time Ray Guy Award winner, and as you will see in just a second, could lay the wood from his punter's position. He makes the big man region as the 4 seed, and he goes up against one of the best centers in school history, J.D. Walton. In the 5th seed, Mr. Spencer Drango, one of the best tackles in school history. And then I could not for a life of me find a good picture of Aubrey Scholes. He is the center there in that photograph, one of the greats from the 70s, one of those older players that we need to celebrate, one of the greats for Baylor. In the 6th seed, Santana Deanna Dotson, an NFL Rookie of the Year for the Green Bay Packers. Most don't know, started his career at Baylor. Absolute legend on the defensive line, going up against another amazing defensive lineman in Sean Oakman. The 7th seed is perhaps the greatest guard in school history. He certainly has an argument, Mr. Cyril Richardson, going up against another one of the great guards. And I think the player, one of two players going back the oldest on this list to the 50s, Mr. Barton Kosh. Alan Lefevre is going to tell us more about him in a second. And in the 8th seed, Baylor's first unanimous All-American, Bill Glass, a guard, going up against Mark Addix, who, again, I could not find a good photo of his Baylor playing days. He's an orthopedic surgeon now, Mr. Addix is. One of the great offensive linemen in school history. There it is, the big man region. Guys, your reaction quickly to what this looks like.
Daniel may win this, right?
Let's go.
Yeah, he's a crowd pleaser.
Who doesn't like a punter who can bring the lumber, man? Come on. Have y'all seen that hit? That's crazy.
We're going to show it in just a second.
Are we?
We've got
That's
it.
awesome.
We've got it.
It's the best.
Okay.
I was really glad to see that you reached out and had Bill Glass on your list. Bill Glass was not just one of the best linemen in college football. He kind of becomes the prototype of what linemen are going to be like for years to come. His speed, his ability to pull, that's what makes him an All-American. His athleticism. He's one of those guys that you just don't realize that he helped change not just the game at the college level, but the pro level as well. And had he played for somebody other than the Cleveland Browns, you wonder where he would be placed more in people's minds today. Glad you have Koch there. You know, sports writers of his day, Jinx Tucker and even Dave Campbell later will say that Barton Koch was considered by many to be pound for pound the best lineman in America his senior year. The dude was knocking heads and taking names in a time when it wasn't all about size. Never saw him play. We've only seen his pictures. But the fact that sports writers like Tucker and Campbell and others of their era so revered who he was and what he had done, I think it's hard not to say he had to be something special. You gotta love a punter that can lay a returner out, and that I will never forget that game. Mostly because I was sitting with his parents in the president's box when that happens, and so when he laid that North Texas guy out, it was just amazing.
Baylor sports, and I now bring in three of my very favorite Baylor big men in history. The number 1 seed is with us. Andrew, you're the number 1 seed in a bracket full of All-Americans and NFL stars. How's it feel?
Feels pretty good. Feels pretty good.
When you look over that list, Andrew, who are some of the other guys you really respect?
Oh, you got Spencer Drangle right here. We left at the same time. These guys, him and Cyril Richardson, I was there when they were there. And going against those two, I got a lot of respect for them.
I'm going to ask you a question about that in just a second, Andrew. I want to take it real quick to Blake Blackmar, who joins us. Blake, are you shocked and disappointed that you didn't make the cut? And which of these guys would you challenge for your spot?
I think my campaign to be on the list I ran out of funding and didn't get enough steam. But I'm not that disappointed. I know I was able to look quite a bit during my time. I have quite a few fond memories of both these guys I'm sitting the screen with. Mostly Andrew Billings blocking me my freshman year. And then Spencer Drango showed me the ropes and saving my leg a couple times during the first start. against UU. So I don't know if I challenge him to this spot quite yet, but some of these old heads, I feel like I could get them for their money.
Dr. Lefevre's talking about Barton Kosh, and I'm like, I feel like Andrew Billings would eat him for breakfast. Like, I know it's hard to compare across eras, but I'm like, yeah, that dude's like 200 pounds soaking wet. It would be a different story if he played today.
Hey, Billings used to eat for breakfast.
That's right.
I got one time of perspective.
Hey, Spencer, I wanted to ask, you are one of the best players in school history. It's indisputable. How's it feel being one spot behind a punter?
Sepulveda is a great punter. That hit was amazing. I was a shock to see him on the list, actually, the big man list. But he's a great punter. I think I could take him.
In what regard?
Well, kicking, obviously. He would kick by rear in that one. I might be able to hit him just as hard as he hit that guy.
Yeah, I'd believe that. Now, here's what I want to know, and a couple of you have teased it already. I want to know, are there any fun sparring stories between any of you from practice? Blake, I know you were a little bit after Spencer and Andrew, but any fun sparring stories from practice, whether it's between you guys or with Cyril or Sean Oakman, any good stories from practice where you guys got to go after each other?
Usually Sean and I would go against each other every day. I got to see Bill a couple times. But yeah, Sean and I would, it's like your brother. You see him every day. You just kind of want to. And so it happened once or twice. But it's all good fun.
Yeah, I remember bull rushing the McGowan for a whole practice.
How did that go?
I'm dead at the end.
I've got a good memory of the scout team blocking Oakland and Andrew Billings. I specifically remember my first day of I got stuffed in with the second team randomly. And Sean Oakland and Andrew Billings, I think the stunt got messed up. So Bill's in the A gap, Oakland's in the B gap. And I was sitting there responsible, and I didn't know who I was supposed to be responsible for. So I made the intelligent decision to try to block both of them. And I have never gone backwards that quickly in my life. I did not fall, but I went past the quarterback, past Coach Riles, with both guys, because I was holding the shit out of them. And it was my welcome to college moment.
I think they pulled that film up, did the old laser lasso around it, so I got a good one on it.
Yeah. Someone got to play in the room.
That's fantastic. Andrew, we had you on the Pete Souza show last week, and you mentioned that a lot of the bigger schools were recruiting you, trying to get you to play offensive line, which seems insane now that you're still playing in the NFL on the defensive side of the football. I want to know, Andrew, how good of an offensive lineman do you think you would be? And then I want to ask Spencer and Blake how good of a defensive lineman you guys think you would be.
Oh. I thought I could have been a pretty good offensive lineman, center or guard. Got low center of gravity, and I don't know. I just especially in college. I mean, my move was the bull rush, so that's just driving somebody back at the end of the day. So I think I could have been pretty good at offensive line.
I would have loved to see your pass a little. I really would.
Spencer and Blake, either one of you want to say what you think you would do on the defensive side?
I don't know if it would be an Andrew Billings, but I think I could have competed out there for sure. I got decent hands, swim moves and stuff, but I think Blackie would have made a pretty good nose. Only going.
I would have been a hell of a space beater. Got plenty of some reps senior year on a field goal block, just driving, basically driving my position on an actual field goal back in the lab, and someone more athletic try to block it.
For all of you guys, I want to know, what's your favorite on-field memory?
You know what? Actually, going back to the defensive lineman breaks, I'm cutting myself short. I would have been a freaking dud. I would have gone in for 3 plays at a time and just murdered people, and then I'd go out, get some oxygen, use some Gatorade, I'll see you in like 6 plays.
Favorite on-field memory for all of you guys.
For me, it was I got a couple of 2012 after the holiday break. We got the Hoyt trophy. When no one thought we'd be there or there to be there against UCLA, and we brought a paddle and spanked it pretty good. You got the Hoyt trophy. I thought the 2012 line was the best line I had at Baylor. The other funny story about that is I think the final score of that game was about 43-26. But Coach Riley didn't believe the last touchdown that UCLA scored counted. So our goal rate have like 46-19. It's hilarious.
I remember hearing about that.
Yeah. If you look at it, they didn't confirm a touchdown. The guy was like 3 yards.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, I think my favorite memories on the field was really just teams coming in that old Floyd Casey Stadium, and we just driving them right back out where they came from, because it wasn't the best stadium in the Big 12, probably one of the worst, and we would just smack people around.
Absolutely.
Take the tarp off.
Yeah. Blake.
All right, let me take your picture. 2014, week 5, Tuesday practice, and Coach was mad at Will for taking it either an inside run or something like that. So he made me go playing scout team center. He made me do like 10 reps in a row against Bill and just chewing Bill out and get him to go hard and throw me around. We get 10 reps and that was run blocking. We go straight into like pass pro, get another period worth of reps, and then after Bill tapped me on the butt and said, "Hey, we can go 50% now." Best my scout team experience vastly improved after that. In a real scenario, probably we would have Texas Bowl my senior year. We went from top of the mountain to the very low gutter, and then we starting to climb back out, back into somewhat level relevance. But not having to go 100% against Bill every day practice and lose brain cells would probably still top 5.
That's great. Hey, guys, thank you so much for jumping in with us. Andrew and Spencer, I'm going to let you run. Blake, I'm going to keep you for 2 more seconds because one of our sponsors here for Please Bear With Me this spring is Southern Roots Brewing. Yeah. I've got the Southern Roots cap here on the desk. I've got some Southern Roots merch behind me, as well as a 6-pack of Alico beer behind me. We love Southern Roots. Great place in Waco to not only get beer, but get pizza. And Blake, I hear a rumor. And by hear a rumor, I mean I'm pretty sure it's happening, and I'll probably be there, and you'll probably be there, that Southern Roots and Blake Blackmar are partnering for a tailgate this fall.
Yeah, I think we're going to have a good time starting with that first game against Auburn. I just really got moved Friday night, trying to plan my return to the tailgate, but that's okay. I can work on short notice. Yeah, we'll be out there. We'll make some fun. We'll make some barbecue, drinking beer. We'll have good times. We'll try to get as many alumni together and create a special environment to go into the game. Set the season off on a great foot. We'll continue that tailgate through the year. I think it'll be a lot of fun. I know the food will be pretty good.
Yeah, well, yeah. So Southern Roots, Blake Blackmar going to be at a tailgate. If you know where the George's tailgate used to be, that's where we're going to be. And I am not going to say what I'm trying to do at that tailgate yet, but let's just say we might be doing something at that tailgate with Please Bear With Me as well. So, Blake, thanks so much for joining us. Love you, bro. We'll talk soon.
All right. Sounds good. Y'all be good.
So Southern Roots, thanks again to Southern Roots for sponsoring our comeback. Please bear with me. If you're here in Waco and you want to spend an evening, great place to go have a casual evening out. Good pizza, trivia nights on Tuesdays. That's a bunch of fun. And for my money, the best beer in Waco. Go see my friends at Southern Roots. Hey, we're going to take a 5-minute breather. Make sure everybody's good. We got some water. And we will be back. We got 2 more regions to reveal. So 5 minutes. Stay right here and we'll be back on Please Bear With Me. Yeah, we're here. We are in. I haven't done a proper introduction of the space yet because we were so scrambled getting started tonight. We are in the 21st floor of the Alico building here in Waco, Texas. This is the Rogue Media Network's sports studio. I work up here weekday mornings with Pete Souza on a show. It's a lot of fun. I am in this building tonight with Terrence Ganaway, Michael Bartlemay, Travis Corley, all of them helping us bring Please Bear With Me back. Ganaway and Corley probably, I hope, an every week part of this show moving forward. Bartlemay, when he feels like it or when I can't get another guest, as he likes to say. Bartlemay and I are cooking up some preseason awards we're going to give out in August to the Baylor football team. Reminder, there is stuff going on with Baylor football, by the way. Richard Reese just entered the portal. Travis, I know you were a Richard Reese guy.
Oh, yeah, of course. Who wasn't after that freshman year?
Yeah.
And Reese's was as well.
I was a little surprised that he didn't enter earlier, to be honest with you, like at the immediate end of the season.
Yeah, I think, the name of the game, right? Get in early, right? Get into the portal early, get your name out there early. And for him to have waited this long, I'd be interested to see kind of like some background information on that of like why he waited so long. Did he think he may have gotten some playing time here coming up next or just what that whole story is?
Yeah.
Is it a little bit of like strategy as well? Because now after a while, people kind of settle into where they're going to go. So he may have more options at this point to pick where some people have landed and where there's some gaps that he may need to fill. Because I feel like if everyone enters the portal right after the season, it is overloaded, and then you probably
I see what you're saying. So now the teams that still need a running back.
Yeah, he could be a little bit more selective.
He's a top option now. Yeah. No, that's a good
and
point.
he also sees where the other top guys are going. Maybe he sees like, oh, here's an obvious shot at playing time right here versus maybe over here somebody else went. He doesn't necessarily want to deal with that.
And I think once you get in that portal, you start seeing these names go to places that you place a high value in. And you're like, all right, let me just go to this school before someone else takes the job. And now you end up at, no-name state, which I know playing college ball is still important at any level, but you don't get your first pick. So I think at this stage, he probably can be a little bit more selective with his process, in my opinion.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. When we're all wishing Richard Reese the best. We'll talk more about Baylor football news as we get through this bracket and the rounds get smaller and smaller and as more things begin to happen with spring practice and so forth. But right now, we've still got two regions to reveal in our March Madness bracket of Baylor football players. If you've missed it, we have already revealed the hits region of linebackers and safeties. We talked to Eddie Lackey and Jordan Lake. We've revealed the big men region of offensive and defensive linemen and Daniel Sepulveda. And we spoke with Spencer Drango, Andrew Billings, and Blake Blackmar. Thanks to all those guys for joining us. We are now ready to reveal what I'm calling the speed region. These are cornerbacks and wide receivers. Baylor had a period of time where it was kind of taking a claim on wide receiver U. I think Ohio State has squarely locked that up here in the recent years. But great legacy position for Baylor, wide receiver. And oddly enough, while many of those wide receivers have been unable to find success in the NFL, there have been multiple Baylor corners across all eras who have found success in the NFL. Gentlemen, quick answer from each of you. I want an answer from each of you. The most underrated receiver in Baylor's history is
Tyquan Thornton. I think underrated.
It's fair.
It's from that era where it's like things are a little rough out there, and he kind of showed up and was the dude for a bit and was really, really good. And frankly, on an offense that wasn't that good, provided a huge outlet for that team.
And this is a tough one. David Geddes was a really great leader for us when I was here. And then he had an opportunity to play in the NFL for a little while, but was just riddled with injuries. But I think he's underrated.
For me, I kind of looked at all the, you go to stats first. You look at the top 15 to 20 guys in there. You kind of look at names. And honestly, the most underrated receiver for me is Treston Ebner. He's 18th in career receptions, 22nd in receiving yards, and he's tied 21st in receiving touchdowns for Baylor. And that's tied with 11 touchdowns. That's tied with Levi Norwood, Lanier Sampson, and he has more than R.J. Snead.
Wow. Well, I'll go ahead and spoil something. Treston Ebner is not going to be in this region since he
How
was
fast did you have
listed
to
as
run a
running
40
back.
to get in the speed region? Because am I in the speed region?
Do you think you belong in the wide receivers and cornerbacks region?
Well, Ebner's not a receiver.
Well, he's not in this region. I just said that.
But were you talking about receivers? He said he was an underrated receiver. I want to know if I'm fast enough to be in this. Like, so where did you?
Well, what's your 40 time?
What was your fastest 40 time, Terrence?
Listen.
Yeah, he doesn't want to say it now. Yeah, you don't want to talk about it now.
Ask no questions. I tell you no lies. So don't ask any questions. But I'm just curious of what criteria Scotty used for this, other than receivers and cornerbacks.
The criteria was receivers and cornerbacks.
Okay.
And I called it speed region because generally speaking, those are two of your fastest.
I have the
positions.
longest
They're fast.
rush TD in Baylor's history. FYI.
That doesn't mean you ran fast, though.
Terrence, I'm going to make.
Doesn't mean you ran fast,
Speed.
Terrence, I'm going to make you a deal.
Speed.
Let's look at the speed region.
Coach Brown said you cannot coach. What? Speed. All right, I digress.
All right, let's look at the speed region, which will not feature Terrence Ganaway because, once again, it is receivers and corners. Let's pull it up. I will tell you, the most underrated Baylor receiver to me all time is Dominique Ziegler, and he has won his play-in matchup against C.J. Wilson. And unfortunately, waiting for him in round one is the school's only Biletnikoff winner, the number one seed. I think this is clear and obvious. Corey Coleman is the number one seed. The second seed in the speed region is Kendall Wright, Baylor's all-time leading receiver statistically. For a year, the number one receiver with RG3, just an outstanding player. And he goes up against a guy who defines speed in a lot of ways, Mr. Tevin Reese. Just a killer there over the middle in the slot, Tevin Reese and Kendall Wright. The third seed in the speed region is Gerald McNeil. My father-in-law played with Gerald McNeil at Baylor. He says he could not have weighed over $130. Could not have weighed over $130. The dude played for 4 years in the NFL, and if you look statistically, he is one of the very few receivers that played pre-Bryles that has the numbers to go up against Bryles-era receivers. And he goes up against another guy that defined speed, Katie Cannon, a star from the moment he stepped on campus to when he departed. The fourth seed is Gary Green, the best cornerback in school history, going up against a guy who, we talked before the show, has had so much NFL success, Mr. Xavier Howard. The fifth seed in the speed region is brother of James Francis. Ron Francis is the fifth seed. Another cornerback going up against Denzel Mims for my money. If you're going to throw a jump ball to win a game, I want it going to Denzel Mims. He's the 12th seed going against Ron Francis. The sixth seed in the speed region is Terrence Williams, runner-up for the Biletnikoff in 2012. Of course, had that monster game, single game reception yardage record against West Virginia. And he goes up against, guys, this is the first Baylor player I learned by name and knew by name as a kid. Reggie Newhouse played in the late 90s, early 2000s, and was a unit at wide receiver. Just an absolute star on a team where he was the only absolute star. Reggie Newhouse, fans, the other 5,000 fans who visited Floyd Casey that season will remember Reggie Newhouse with me. The seventh seed, Melvin Bonner, the go-to target for J.J. Joe in that play-action offense, going up against Gary Baxter, the cornerback who also spent a long time in the NFL. Baxter, Lefevers can tell us in a minute. Another great player on a bad team. We've got a few of those in this tournament. The eighth seed, another corner, Ray Crockett, going up against Larry Elkins. And Larry Elkins, Shihan Jayaraja was texting me about Larry Elkins. Truly, if you look at his numbers and the era in which he played, it's actually astounding. He is still top 10, I believe, in Baylor all-time receiving. Larry Elkins, the ninth seed in the speed region. Let's put up that graphic. There we go, the whole bracket. That is your speed region of wide receivers and corners. Guys, I'm going to be honest, this was a really hard region for me to seed because there's so many very, very, very good players in this region.
I mean, I think we're a nap in the Taco Bell drive-thru from having someone really dominate this region. And then obviously I take offense to the name of this region, but other than that, I think it's a good slate of talent.
I just think I think you've underseeded Denzel Mims. I know that like the numbers aren't quite as there maybe as some of the other dudes of the era maybe a few years before, but we built an entire offense on throwing outs and curl routes to one side of the field just to Denzel Mims basically an entire season. That's basically all we threw to, and it worked because Denzel Mims could basically body any corner in the Big 12. So I think we should give some more credit to him here.
Boundary fade to Denzel Mims. When you're in trouble, that's the play, right?
That's it.
Look,
That's it.
I got to give some love to Tevin Reese here, man. A 15 seed. He is the definition of speed, and he also has the stats to back it up. He's fourth in Baylor history in receptions with 187. He's fourth in yards in Baylor history with 3,334. And of the top 25 players in receiving yards, he's fifth in yards per catch with 16.6. He's not a 15 seed. He's just not.
I agree. Sweet Feet needs to be higher, but again, speed region is offensive.
You're killing me with that, Terrence. Hey, reminder that we did some recording with Dr. Alan Lefevre before tonight's episode. He is the author of the history of Baylor sports. We're going to listen to him talk about some of the players you may have not gotten to watch play in this region.
Gerald McNeil, he came in. He was a freshman when I was. And when I say he was 5'6", 5'7", and weighed 130, I might be being gracious. He was amazing as both a punt returner and a wide receiver. For those who don't know Gary Green, when Gary Green was at Baylor, he was an All-American cornerback. But he went on to a distinguished NFL career. The dude was a shutdown corner who he played for, who he played against in those days. That was big. That was the era of dominant football by UT and Arkansas, and he went up against those guys and shut them down. Larry Elkins, no one knows today. If he would have played in offenses that we play today, Larry Elkins would have had 1,300 yards receiving. Sometimes when you look at guys across an era of a sport, you end up having to think, okay, what if Elkins played today? What given his physique, his speed, his ability, Elkins might have been an H-back today. But I still think he's got a big impact on the game today. He would be. We might think of him more as a Ben Sims type. When you needed a reception, he made it. He was open. He got it. Gary Baxter, who my gosh, may have been the only talented defensive player we had for some of his years at Baylor. He was the prototypical cornerback. In this day and age, we don't hold on to Gary Baxter. Because if you go back during that time with as bad as we were, that's a kid that would have been in a portal.
So I grew up in Waco. I grew up in China Spring. And so when Sean Bell got recruited to Baylor, it was a really, really big deal. And the first football player for Baylor that I just became absolutely obsessed with was his go-to target. Dominic Ziegler joins us here on Please Bear With Me. Ziggy, can you hear me? There he is.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Hey, welcome to Please Bear With Me, man. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Hey, seriously, Dominique, you were like my first very favorite college football player ever. I would go to the Meet the Bears events as a kid, and you'd sign the poster, and I'd always get super jazzed to meet you, man. So this is a full circle moment for me having you on the show. What is one word you would use to describe your game as a player?
One word, athletic.
I like that.
Anytime the ball's there, just get it wherever it's at. Not everyone can catch it hard. There was high in athletic.
Part of that athleticism deal was, correct me if I'm wrong, but you played quarterback in high school, yeah?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I played back in high school much all my life except for 2 years in high school. Sophomore year, played receiver. And it was where I had a quarterback and I play ball. I don't take a string quarterback and just sit on the sideline. I said, hey, let's go play receiver.
Kendall Wright was another guy that played quarterback in high school and then ended up being a great wide receiver for Baylor. How does playing quarterback give you an advantage playing wide receiver?
You understand how to play book. That's the big thing. Whenever you can understand how to learn, you can go play multiple positions at receiver, not just stuck in one spot. In case somebody goes down, you need to move someone else, slide over someone, team out. So easier to learn. You've a quarterback. Understand you.
Take us to that game in 2004, right? It's kind of the iconic moment for you and Sean and that whole team upsetting number 12 Texas A&M in double overtime in Floyd Casey. I just think it is actually like the most BA thing ever that you caught the game-winning touchdown or the tying touchdown, and then you go for two. And it looked like the exact same play to go right back to you exactly again. Take us into that moment. What was that like?
I mean, it was crazy. We weren't games. So number team and at that time it was hot as any country. He hadn't done interception up to the point and pick him off. And they gave us some early in the game. Just kept finding a way to score, and lo and behold, actually was at X and Z.
Dominique, Michael has a question for you regarding that Texas A&M matchup.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, man.
Yes, sir.
Obviously, Texas A&M game's probably the highlight of that era of Baylor football. Really, looking at the current state of the Big 12, do you ever kind of wish or miss Baylor getting to play A&M or now UT even? Do you miss kind of those interstate matchups like that?
Oh yeah. I have a lot of friends went to A&M. So Baylor back that night at A&M, and I had 6 A&M students stand up, which is crazy. All said it's awesome. It was because of you, friends that I grew up. So being able to still have the competitive weekend and trash talk. Have those playing.
Yeah, that makes sense. Totally.
So, Ziggy, I got to Baylor in 2011, and so I feel like I was there for like 4 of the very best years. Heisman, 2 Big 12 championships, but really the peak of like Baylor offensive football there from about 2011 to 2015. And I told people even when I was in college, I would say, if only Dominique Ziegler could have played in an Art Briles offense. Did you ever watch those offenses and think, man, if only I was a little younger?
Very crazy. Coach Briles actually he got his first job and on that visit, Kevin Cobb, Don Avery, and Anthony Aldridge. All three of them ended up. I went to Baylor, and it was mainly because I didn't really understand how that offense played in the college. And I can remember my feet at Baylor. Made sure to pick Houston in Michigan. And I said, "This looks like it's gonna." Fast forward a few more years in Baylor, and then being able to back and get my degree, be able to work there. I was learning. All I can say, only if I could.
Yeah. You're up against Corey Coleman in the bracket, which that sucks. Whoever's going to go up against a guy like that, that's tough. But hey, let's make a case. Why should folks vote for you to get the upset of the tournament and move on past Coco?
Okay. So
to be, you know, he's the winner from Baylor. But I will say that if that offense you can pretty much do almost probably 2.5 times offense. Just because vertical offense, and I love what at the time currently vertical offense. We were at X and type in, backers and let safeties come down. So that wasn't the route we were going. Now when you got Browse off, I mean we're going vertical, we're down, but it's all based off defense. So the defense is never right. So as long as I do what I'm supposed to understanding defense, understanding playbook, that offense. If you're a receiver, you got to get over 1,000, 11 yards. You're the main guy.
Absolutely. Well, Ziggy, seriously, full circle moment for me as a Baylor fan. Thanks so much for coming on with us and talking Baylor football, and I hope we can do it again.
Oh yeah. I appreciate having me. I actually the link to Mo Lane because I see him here and I'm friends with him. It was pretty neat. And I will say, looking forward to seeing Daryl McNeil. He's a clean guy. So I'm rooting for clean guy. But before I go, I will say I didn't see the practice force, but my final figure was going to Singletary, Coleman, supposed Jason Smith.
There you go.
I didn't know supposed was going to be put into the ticket. Now I gotta.
Yeah, well, it's hard to fit a punter into a region, but that dude was so jacked for that position. It felt right. It felt right.
No doubt.
All right. Thanks, Ziggy. We'll talk to you again soon. That was Dominique Ziegler. Again, my favorite player as a kid and coming into high school, like middle school era. It was like the Ziegler years for me. Any thoughts before we move on from the speed region, guys?
And I played at University of Houston for 1 year with Donnie Avery and Anthony Aldridge. And when I think about that offense, if we had a player like Zig on there, obviously we wouldn't have overlapped. But 1 year, it would have been insane. I mean, those two guys were speed, and you have an athletic guy like that to come in to mix it up. It'll be very tough for offenses to stop us.
I just think he made a great case for why you should vote for him. I mean, he was out here talking about, it was easy to get yards in this Browse offense. Look how hard this man had to work.
Michael, are you going to go vote for Dominique Ziegler?
I'm going to think about it.
Okay.
How long?
I'm going to go review the tape.
How long are you going So he is right. I mean, if you don't have a Dominique Ziegler, you don't have a Kendall Wright. You don't have a Terrence Williams. And then you don't have Antoine Goodley, Jay Lee, Corey Coleman. And then, I think it built up a program where we showed people that you can compete at a high level against Texas, A&M, Oklahomas of the world, and still play really good football. So I agree that he laid the foundation. It's still going to be very hard. Corey Coleman is my favorite Baylor Bear of all time. And so I love the way he played, and he always –
Is he still your favorite Baylor Bear of all time now that he's on the coaching staff at TCU?
Yeah, as a Baylor player, he is. But I could care less about him coaching at TCU. I wish him well, except a couple of games out of the year. So, no, he was so much fun to watch, and him dapping up another coach on the sideline after a big play is the epitome of what I thought of him, and just a phenomenal athlete. But still, this speed region is, it's a sore subject.
Well, then we will move on in just a second to another region. But first, let me tell you another one of our sponsors, for please bear with me, during this spring run is Primetime Pets. I hope my friend Brian, a.k.a. Bear the Truth on YouTube, is watching. Primetime Pets, located in Rockwall. You may not know that you have bought Primetime Pets stuff. They sell it at all the big box stores, Petco and PetSmart and all this. But they make pet gates and pet beds and pet furniture that you actually want to put in your home because it's not cheap plastic crap. And so let me just encourage you, if you've got a dog or a cat, go to Primetime Pets website. I wish I remembered. I think it's just primetimepets.com. Brian will forgive me if I got that wrong. We'll get it right next week. But Thank you to Brian and Primetime Pets. We are going to give away some of their stuff later this spring, and you just got to subscribe to Please Bear With Me. So subscribe to Please Bear With Me, and if you've got a dog or a cat, we might have something really, really nice for you here in a few weeks. And gentlemen, it is time to reveal our final region in this March Madness bracket, and it is the backfield region. It is the backfield region, and I would say the backfield region contains the two most scrutinized, exposed, and perhaps most underappreciated positions in football, just in terms of like, you got the ball in your hands, and everybody's watching, and everybody's making a judgment, even though Terrence, like the other three of us in this room, could never have gotten close to doing what you could do on a football field in a million years.
Because of speed. Travis is no way with those legs. He's faster than me.
I can't believe that. Yeah, I have to believe you.
Terrence, tell us, in your opinion, what makes a great college running back, and like beyond just talent, right? Because we can see talent, and there have been a lot of talented guys come through the college ranks. But what makes someone go from good to great at the running back position?
Man, that's a tough question. It seems like it would be very easy to answer, but when you think about being an elite running back, which I don't think I was. I played with a good O-line, and then I had a quarterback that was super distracting that allowed me to do some really cool things on the field. But from good to great, I think it's just doing your job. I mean, someone said it earlier. It's not rocket science. It's about lining up at the right place, trusting that the blocks are going to happen in front of you. Coach Clemens did a really good job of producing NFL caliber offensive linemen. And when you understand the offense as well as you should as a running back, it makes everything simple. And I played, defense in high school. I played quarterback too, probably a better quarterback than Kendall. Kendall, just ran the ball. Side note, it wasn't like he was throwing. I don't know what Zig did in high school. But
But since you were talking about speed earlier, there's no way you come close to him in a foot race, though.
Who?
Kendall.
So, the thing is,
there's
he
no
keeps
way.
avoiding this
Bro,
question.
There's no way.
He keeps avoiding the question of how fast are you, but he wants to tell us how fast he is without telling us how fast you are.
I think there's one person in Baylor's history that has a longer touchdown run than me, and that's Josh Gordon. So, when Kendall gets in the 89, 90 range, then we can talk. Until then.
So you're not going to answer the question, who would win in a foot race?
I will beat him 89 yards into the end zone. I can tell you that much. He's going to beat me in the 40, but he's going to get a little tired, and my attitude is going to get me to the end. So, listen, Kendall's a phenomenal athlete. He was in the last region. I'm talking about the speed region. Now, which I think it should be appropriately named, our region. Anyways, I digress. To be a good running back, you have to understand the offense. I played defense in high school, so I understood defense really well. And I think when you want to be a production guy, you have to just do the work. I mean, and you have to set up the big plays, and you have to go for the body. Coach Kaz always talked about you can't get a knockout in the first round. And when you think about running backs that are super frustrating, it's the running backs that try to score every time they get the ball. But, there was several plays where I was stopped in the backfield, but we were setting up something later on and trusting that the offense is going to do the right job, and you're going to have those plays, and then making everyone earn a tackle on you. So I thought I was really blessed with a great group of guys around me. I don't think I should be in this field, but I'm super grateful for it.
Oh, he plays like he's the fastest Baylor
Alabama
player ever, and then he says he
MVP.
shouldn't be in the field. You can't have it both ways. CG.
Listen, I will beat Kendall right in the foot race.
Oh my god! Oh my
Let's make it happen for charity.
Sponsored by Please Bear With Me. Please.
For charity, I'm in. Let's have both of you race right now.
See now, Michael and I really have to jump in here because this is wild. That
You
would make
don't
that
think I
statement
could?
on this show.
You don't think I could?
No,
I don't think I need to answer that
don't.
question.
I don't.
I don't think
and
I
I
need
love
to
you. You're my friend and my brother, but I don't.
We all know the
Alamo Bowl
answer.
MVP. Terrence Stanley.
See, Michael's on my side. So
That's 'cause I'm with the arm reach.
I would, with the arm reach.
Speaking of Michael is one of those guys. He's one of my friends who's very vocal that hitting a baseball is the hardest thing you can do in professional sports. But I'm kind of inclined to believe it's actually playing quarterback. Pete Souza, who I work with here at Rogue, says that it's the second most important job in America after the president. So I want to ask each of you, who is your favorite outside of Baylor, your favorite quarterback ever to watch, and why?
Well, that's easy for me. I'm going to take a really boring answer and say Peyton Manning.
Why is that boring? I think that's a good answer.
I don't know. I just think that's a lot of people's answer.
Yeah, it's a lazy
It's
answer.
not creative. I agree with you.
Yeah.
It is a lazy answer,
I would
but
go
it's
with
the
Tom
truth.
Brady. Yeah, I mean, it's a lazy answer. Like, you don't really have to think about it. But there's a ton of great players. I appreciate Peyton Manning, Hall of Fame quarterback. I would go with Tom Brady. Peyton Manning had the brains to get people in a lot of places. Tom Brady just
had those deflated balls.
Yeah, I know. I mean, you can't do anything about it. If someone hands you a ball
you ain't
that's
cheating,
half
you
flat,
ain't trying. Isn't that what they say?
Yeah,
that's right.
Listen, that's what they say. But Tom Brady would be it for me. I just love the way he played, and he won a lot of games in the 20-year career he had.
Vince Young is my pick.
I think that's a great pick.
Scotty, you talked about Ziggy being the first player you kind of fell in love with, and I did not grow up a Baylor fan. I grew up watching Purdue football and Texas football, which is quite a wide spectrum there of sports to watch. But Vince Young is the first player that I fell in love with watching football. And there was something about watching a guy who you looked at and you were like, oh, if we have the ball last, we're going to win. Like, there is going to put the team on my back, and we're going to get it done.
On the biggest stage.
Something special about that.
Yeah.
He was super special. Gosh.
No,
Unbelievable.
Vince Young, we've shared this before, is the first non-Baylor football player I fell in love with when it was in that Rose Bowl national championship. Like, how can you not? Like, that was crazy.
Is he the best college quarterback ever?
For me.
For
me.
I don't think he is, but he is.
Who could be a better quarterback?
Scotty's going to say Tim Tebow.
No, absolutely
He's
not.
going to say Tim Tebow.
Best leader? Maybe.
He's going to say that.
You're going to say Tim Tebow?
He's going to say Tim Tebow.
Do rings matter in college football?
No. I'm talking
they
about,
don't?
No.
Oh, then it's Robert Griffin.
You know, I can agree with that. Robert's a great quarterback, and I was really close to him. So you don't appreciate people that you're always close to. But yes, Robert was a special quarterback.
I just need you to know that Scotty and I have been having these arguments for 14 years. So any question you ask him, I can answer it and give you the reason why Scotty's going to answer it every single time. For
so outside of Baylor,
if rings don't matter, I would also say Tony Romo.
Tony Romo?
I loved watching Tony Romo play football, man. We do need to move on. Let's get into it. We've battled around the quarterback
what
free for all
liquor
long
company
enough.
do we have sponsoring you again?
Here we go. Let's reveal this backfield bracket, and our number one seed, as a shocker to many, I believe, will be Robert Griffin III, and he goes up against the guy who won his play-in matchup. Let's give some love to Sawyer Robertson, baby. He is the 16 seed. He is the 16 seed going up against Robert Griffin in this bracket. The second seed is one of the oldest players in this bracket, but the only other Baylor Bear to ever be a Heisman finalist. It's Don Truhl, and he goes up against Alfred Anderson. Dr. Lefevre is going to give us some insight on both of those guys here in just a little bit. The third seed, I just had to do it, the all-time leading rusher in school history. It's Shock Linwood, and he goes up against someone that was mentioned by Travis Corley earlier as an underrated receiver, Treston Ebner, a do-it-all star in his time at Baylor, returner, receiver, and running back, but going up against the school's leading rusher in Shock Linwood. The fourth seed, perhaps the ultimate elder statesman of Baylor football, Mr. Walter Abercrombie, not only a star at Baylor, but in the NFL as well. He goes up against Tom Mickey, one half of that two-quarterback offense under Grant Taff. The fifth seed in this region is the two-time champion, Bryce Petty, and he goes up against another one of the oldest players in this draft, Ronnie Bull. Once again, Dr. Lefevre will give us some insight into Ronnie Bull. The sixth seed, perhaps the most dynamic guy with the ball in his hands, Lake Seastrunk, going up against our friend who we honored at the top of the broadcast. God bless him, Mr. J.J. Joe. J.J. Joe, of course, coming in when Grant Taff was going back to the Veer offense, and the Veer offense and J.J. Joe were made for one another. The seventh seed in this region, Seth Russell, one of the great dual threat quarterbacks. Dude, if this was not the school where Robert Griffin had won a Heisman, we'd be talking about Seth Russell that way. The dude was crazy athletic, could run, could throw, put the ball on a dime. Seth Russell going up against Abram Smith, who broke one. Terrence Ganaway's right. Is Abram Smith faster than you, bro?
Absolutely not.
Well, he did break your single-season rushing record, which you held for 10 seasons here at Baylor. Abram Smith has the single-season rushing record. A linebacker during much of his time at Baylor, converted to running back under Dave Aranda's team and was amazing. And then here we go. Our own Terrence Ganaway is the 8th seed in the backfield region. Again, held that single-season rushing record for 10 years. Alamo Bowl MVP, Terrence Ganaway, and he goes up against the other half of that two-quarterback offense under Grant Taft, Houston Oilers and Baylor Bears' own Cody Carlson. That, gentleman, is the backfield region. Terrence, I'll let you respond first because you were a little disappointed in how the seeding fell here.
Yeah, I thought it was a 16 seed, but it doesn't look like I'm going to get out of that first quad. Robert Griffin, he's probably going to make it to the Final Four. A ton of talent here. Abram Smith, obviously, he has the all-time single-season rushing record, but Terrence Ganaway, hold most rushing yards per game in a season because I played 12, not 13. Don't cheat me, bro.
There it is. Hey, arguing for himself in this region. We're going to let you talk more about that in just a little bit, Terrence. Michael and Travis, any reactions to how the backfield region shakes out?
Yes, to have your back here, Terrence, you're definitely not getting out of that quad with RG3. But man,
how is that having his back?
Let me finish my statement.
I think he's just making me feel good, which he is. So continue.
I am. Look. If you had been able to bump up just one seed or just go down to like seed 10, I think you get out of that bracket with Don Truel and maybe even Abram Smith, right? But yeah, putting you in with RG3, that's rough. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I could have been an Elite Eight from that standpoint because I could have. I don't know if I get. Shocklin would probably wins that side of this bracket, but Sweet 16 was there, and I don't get out of the round of 32, man.
It's a rough.
Terrence, it's a fan vote, man. You just got to campaign.
I don't think the fans voted for me to be 8, Scotty. I think you put me in 8, and you made the fans vote. Me against RG3, and assuming I get out of
you got to be Commander Cody first. You got to be Commander Cody first. That's right.
Listen, no, I'm not trying to go at anyone, but I think
except Kendall Wright.
Kendall Wright is a great athlete. He's one of my favorite players as well. But I will be him running in the foot race.
I'm thinking a lot about the fact that I've got snubs to mention here that I'm going to hold until later because I've been told to. But I just want to go on the record that if Seth Russell didn't break his neck,
absolutely,
we're going all the way. We would have gone undefeated that year.
Absolutely.
By the way, Seth Russell, I believe, said that for the first time publicly on Please Bear With Me.
Yeah.
Back in the day. Hey, real quick, let's go back to Dr. Alan Lefevre, again, author of The History of Baylor Sports. We want to thank him for his contributions to tonight's episode. He's going to tell us about some of these guys that maybe you haven't heard of because they played so long ago.
I think you could make a strong argument that Walter Abercrombie helped usher in the modern era of Baylor football with his freshman record when he ran against A&M. J.J. Joe in a time when Baylor was good, not great, but good. We're not good without J.J. Joe. I mean, we're not. We don't. And he comes in at a time as a freshman, redshirt, when he was not going to be counted on. I mean, Brad Gable was our quarterback. We were switching back to the veer, which was tailor-made for J.J. Joe. Brad gets hurt. Joe takes over, and there was no looking back. And he may have been small in stature, but we dominated people with the lesser people with him. If he would have had a little bit more talent around him, I think we could have been great. That one team he quarterbacked that we started off 5-0, got up to 8th in the nation. Ronnie Bull was that prototypical college fullback of his time that just abused people. Ronnie comes along at a time when we're the little brother on the block still, and Ronnie scared the big brother. UT didn't want to play against Ronnie Bull. And, when you have players that teams don't want to play against, not just because they're good, but because they're going to hurt you, that was Ronnie Bull. We shouldn't have a Don Truel, Alfred Anderson matchup until later on in the bracket. You're worse than the NCAA. Don Truel, not a lot of people know, finished fourth at the Heisman his senior year. We were running an offense in the 60s when he was our quarterback. Again, that we were on the cutting edge of offensive football. And I think Don is definitely a symbol of that. You put him in football today, dude throws for 4,000 yards. And then you got Alfred Anderson, a blue chip quarterback coming out of high school that a lot of places would have had him at quarterback. This kid threw for a lot of yards his senior year at Richfield in Waco. But when he came to Baylor, he became a running back, and his freshman year he was the touchdown maker on the freshman on the 1980 team. But just a great and durable and consistent running back.
Thanks. So during Alan Lefevre's segment there was a little conversation going on in the room about how one of these individuals could have potentially been the best player in school history had the injury bug not caught him in a really bad way. And I'm pleased to announce that guy is with us tonight. I want to welcome in my friend, your friend, Baylor great, Mr. Seth Russell. Seth, welcome to Please Bear With Me. Thanks for coming back with us, man.
Yeah, what's up, guys? Appreciate y'all having me.
Hey, Seth, you were on the roster during your time with some very good running backs, like several outstanding running backs during your time at Baylor. Who would you say was the most dynamic you played with?
Well, my freshman year, sophomore year, obviously you had Lake Strunk that was just amazing with football. If you can get him in the right place, go in the right direction. But then again, I mean, you had Shock, Devin Chafin, Johnny Jefferson, Terrence Williams. Whenever I was starting, and I mean, hitting the ball to those guys, they're going north and south pretty quick. T-Dub and Devin were more of a head buster. They were going to kind of cut type of guys. The other two were kind of shifty. They can make a couple of cuts, make you miss. It's hard to put just one back there. Obviously, with Shock having the school record and all that fun stuff. I mean, he was a phenomenal athlete, and I mean, he knew the playbook probably better than I did, which I think really was a testament to his football IQ.
Hey, Seth, do me a favor. If you've got some speakers on, can you turn them down just a little bit? I'm getting a little bit of an echo coming from your signal, but that's all good. Hey, I had a question for you. I don't know if I asked you when we did our long interview several years back. Robert Griffin was kind of noteworthy as that kind of dual threat athlete, as running track at Baylor. I was hearing stories while I was at Baylor that Scott Drew was always holding him a little seat on the bench just in case he wanted to come out and play basketball. Did Scott ever try to get you to play basketball at Baylor? Did they ever ask you to run track at Baylor?
Unfortunately, no. That would have been pretty cool. I think if I would have done anything, it may have been baseball. I mean, basketball was my kind of number one sport in college or in high school at least. But I don't think my ball handling skills would have even been anywhere close to maybe even the JV team in college. And so practice squad at best, maybe basketball wise. But no, I never. None of the coaches ever approached me. I don't know if it was. I don't know. No, I was never asked.
So for both of you guys, I want to bring Terrence in since he's part of this bracket as well. Both of you guys, Terrence, you played with a great dual threat quarterback in RG3. Seth, you were a great dual threat quarterback, and several running backs benefited from playing alongside you. Could you explain to just regular Baylor fans, regular football watchers, what a difference that ability for the quarterback to run makes in terms of creating space for the running back?
I mean, I think it brings an extra guy on the field. You're playing 12 versus 11 when you, especially if you have a solid running game and then you have receivers on the back end. Whenever you can have a dual threat quarterback, there's someone on defense that has to account for the quarterback running. And Zig said earlier, defense can never be right. And if that's the case, someone's going to get off and they're going to have a great game. And Seth was very smart when he needed to move the pocket and make a play. And then he was very smart when the ball was in his hand and he had to deliver a ball on target. And like he said, I mean, those are 3, 4, 5 running backs that he played with that probably started anywhere else in the country, and Baylor had him on the team. So, Seth, I know I've told you this before. I think if you stay healthy, you're definitely one of the all-time greats, if not the greatest player in Baylor history.
I think I lost you. I lost the audio. I'm going to jump out and I'll jump back in, see if that helps.
Thanks, Seth.
Oh.
He heard you. Hey, can you hear us?
There we go. That's better. Yeah.
Hey, I just had one question, and you got to answer Scotty's question as well. Do you think I could beat Kendall Wright in a foot race?
Well, I never saw y'all run, so I don't really have an answer for that one.
I think that's a win for me, right?
Hey, take them if you can get them, Terrence, right? That's what I always say.
Having a dual threat quarterback, what does it do to a defense, and why is it?
Hold on. Whenever Scotty goes out, I can't hear you anymore.
Just keep me on the screen. There we go.
Okay, that's better. Okay, so the question was the dual threat. I think it softens up the defense big time. I mean, you got to stay true to the quarterback. You get more defined reads, heavier boxes, knowing that a lot of defenses hate it when the quarterback is beating them with their feet. So they're going to bring the safety down. And, I mean, if you watch Baylor long enough, if you bring that safety down, go ahead and put 6 on the board. That's kind of what my mindset was. And so they normally play soft, and they'll give me an ability to read out the offense. And we also have that tight end that will pull that defense really where you take into account. So it'll be a man for a man, and it'd just be me head up on safety a lot of times. And the funny thing about it, so with Shock, he would read that. He knew that was going to be coming. And sometimes, even though he'd be true to his side, if I hated it, he'd still cut back to where my reading, which I think was just a testament to him. But I mean, a running quarterback can be a running quarterback who can throw the ball well is I think it's the worst nightmare.
So, for both of you guys, how much do you think really lies on the shoulders of a quarterback in a football game? Because we really, really do make it this like make or break kind of position, and for good reason, right? Like very few Super Bowls have been won by teams that didn't have a great quarterback. It's happened a couple times, but it seems like it's the exception that proves the rule. So how much really lies on a quarterback? And do you think we, and by we I mean the media or fans or whatever, do we give too much credit or too much grief to quarterbacks?
Well, I'll jump in there first. It depends on what type of game you're playing, right? If you're winning 6 games out of the year, then the quarterback is probably so-so. But if you're talking about championship caliber teams, you have to have a really good quarterback. You're not going to win championships without having a quarterback that knows where to place the ball when it needs to be placed, and is going to make difficult reads and have to make difficult throws, but also protect the ball at a very high level. Quarterbacks, I do think they get a ton of scrutiny when things don't go well, but they should get all the praise when things do.
I agree. It's kind of an interesting dynamic. You may not think of it this way, but I feel like if you don't have a good offensive line, doesn't matter how good your quarterback is. And fortunately, in 2015, I think honestly we probably had the best offensive line in school history at that time. I think I remember sitting in the backfield where had 6, 7, 8, 9 seconds of goal ball against some good ball teams, and that's unheard of. I mean, you get my grandma said to throw the ball. I mean, she's gonna dive you up. I mean, that's just unheard of. And so, but on the flip side, you get against those tough games. They know the offensive line is seeing things that they're not comfortable with, or they're being thrown off. And you definitely need to have a guy in the backfield that can change the plays up if you need to. Fortunately, we move so fast. Very rarely do we do too many, line adjustments when you needed to. We had some odds built into our offense. Hot route being there's a blitz coming off, and we don't anticipate picking up. Those receivers are going to, communication. Hey, you need to run a route rather than or a standing route that may run standing in the pocket where the blitz comes. So communication was so important, right? I mean, just give them hand signs, see where they're going, getting the play down. Really just playing ball. I mean, we practiced so hard that it just kind of came next second. There wasn't really much thinking, which was really nice. But yeah, if you get in those high ball games and you don't have a quarterback that's got a good head on his shoulders and understands pressure, can that can make good decisions with the ball instead of pushing it or pressing it. That's where you have that championship team compared to a 500 team.
For both of you, I wanted to know, we began tonight's broadcast a couple hours ago talking about J.J. Joe, freaking legends, just a legacy at Baylor, not only as a football player, but as a man, as a person of faith, just an outstanding ambassador for Baylor. Do either of you have any good J.J. Joe stories that you could share?
I think you summed it up earlier in the monologue. J.J. Joe is the best of all of us. I know he was loved and revered by all that met him. He's just a very wholesome guy. He cared about Baylor. He cared about the kingdom of Christ and the kingdom of heaven. And it's very seldom that you didn't get to talk about both when you met him. So I think you summed it up great earlier. God bless him and his family.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with that. I know he would come. He'd stop by the tailgate show every once in a while, just as he was passing through, and just always a happy-go-lucky guy, right? I mean, we have our weekly kind of review, touch-ups, things like that, and he was always be positive. He always shoot straight, and I always love that about him. And of course, listening to him, between him and John Damo. It's hard to pick a favorite. I mean, they both have some good commentary, and they're both really good at what they did and do. And he's definitely one of the best out of all of us.
All right. Hey, Seth, thanks so much for joining us. I really appreciate it, man, and appreciate you. This isn't the first time you've been on Please Bear With Me, so appreciate your friendship and your insight, and we'll have to have you back this fall to talk some football, man.
You betcha. Appreciate you guys for having me.
Thanks, Seth. Appreciate it, man. Any final reactions before we talk about the field of 64 to the backfield region?
Listen, Scotty, I know we're giving you a hard time, but you did a ton of work on the front end for this. Some of these players I haven't thought of, haven't heard of. And bringing in historians like Alan Lefevre is always great to give Baylor fans perspective. So thank you for allowing us to be a part of it, and thank you for not letting me be a 16 seed.
There it is. Hey, real quick, want to thank our final sponsor tonight, and this is this week's giveaway, so listen up. Dichotomy, Coffee and Spirits. I've got this awesome Hydro Flask from Dichotomy. I'm going to send you this. I'm going to send you this Dichotomy t-shirt, and I will send you a $50 gift card to Dichotomy. Here's what I'm going to tell you about Dichotomy. There's a lot of coffee shops in Waco, a lot of good coffee shops in Waco. Dichotomy's great coffee, but even more than that, just for me personally, there are not a lot of good places in Waco, just to be honest with you, where you can go order a cocktail and get something really good, really balanced, like at a good price. And Dichotomy is my go-to spot in Waco. If you like an old-fashioned, or if you just want to go out on a date night, get a couple drinks, hang out, Dichotomy's the place to be. They've got events that go on so sporadically and ever so often. You got to keep up with them. They just did a tiki bar for Texas Independence Day. That was a lot of fun. So I want you to go by Dichotomy. And if you will subscribe to Please Bear With Me, on Wednesday, I'm going to do a random drawing of all of our subscribers. Again, I'll send you the Hydro Flask, I'll send you the t-shirt, I'll send you a $50 gift card. And whether you live in Waco and you can come down soon, or you live somewhere else and you need to come in on a game night, go to Dichotomy. Those are my friends over there. They will take good care of you. We're going to take another 5-minute intermission. When we come back, we'll spend just a couple minutes with our overall reactions, look at some honorable mentions. Terrence started the night off by calling my bracket Snub City, so we'll see if that continues. Stay with us. Don't go anywhere. This is Please Bear With Me. Be back in 5. Discussion here in studio during that break. Hey, I know. Jokes aside, I know the name of the podcast is Please Bear With Me. I want to say thanks to those of you who've tuned in. I know we've had some occasional audio issues, the snafu at the beginning, things going on. Unexpectedly, Travis Corley ended up having to run the StreamYard and the soundboard and all the things by himself. He's done an amazing job. Thanks to him for doing that. It's been a fun night. We're going to wrap up for just a few minutes talking about this overall bracket. I'll let Travis throw up the different regions as they're relevant. But first, I want to show you, I did make a slide of honorable mentions. There are 64 guys in this bracket. There are more honorable mentions than dudes that made the bracket. I just want to make it clear. There were a lot of names that didn't make the bracket who are worthy of praise. Guys, who do you think got snubbed?
Terrence is the one who called it Snub City. So
there's a lot of good names on here, but Antoine Goodley is probably one that I think could have been in the field of play. But, all these guys were big contributors for Baylor. And then my boy, Jay Finley, who I got to share the locker room with for a couple of years. It's always tough doing this because people will get left out. But, this just shows you how great Baylor's been through the years.
I've got two that I want to get off my chest. One is Charlie Brewer, which Scotty is the one who, when Charlie Brewer was like 16, was already calling him like the next great Baylor quarterback. And so I'm shocked of all people that Scotty would leave him off. The other one is Apu Ika, who was incredible and was a two-time All-Big 12 selection. And I can't believe he's not in the big man bracket, considering how good he was. And not only just how good he was, but how critical he was to that defense and how much you can see how much he's missed the second he walked out the door.
Yeah, I'm going to piggyback off Charlie Brewer. He's got to be he's got to be in this field, right? Second in Baylor history in passing yards. He's also the quarterback that helped us bridge that gap after Bryles left. He's the quarterback that laid it all out on the line for us every single game. He took us to a Big 12 championship appearance. Like, Charlie Brewer deserves his flowers. I'm sad he didn't make the list. That's my one big snub for sure.
Put me back on this camera. I need to look into this camera and be very clear when I say
I just want to talk about the fact that you didn't even have Apu on the honorable mentions list. This is just ridiculous.
I need to look into the camera when I say this. I'm pretty sure that I vividly remember being in a group text with at least two of these guys defending Charlie Brewer for 4 years. The only one saying he was any good, while everybody else was crapping on him. So let me say that first. Second, let me say this, and this is where I'm going to look straight into this camera and say this very clearly. If there's a quarterback that got snubbed, it's not Chuck. It's Nick Florence. I really wish I could have put Nick Florence in this bracket.
That would be my third one, but you don't even have Apu in the honorable mentions list.
Yeah, I missed on that. He needs to be. He's an honorable mention. I missed that one.
I'm proud of you. That's growth.
I just want to make sure this is, I clear my name here. Of the two people that were in a group chat with you, I just got these guys' numbers like a month ago. So I was not in that group chat talking crap about Charlie Brewer. Is that correct?
I would need to go back and look at the group chat we have been in for about 8 years together. You and I have been in a group chat together for a long time. No, I'm saying I was in a group chat with you, and I was in a group chat with you, and I was the Charlie Brewer stan. I was.
Receipts or it didn't happen.
Receipts, go listen to the first season of this podcast. Go listen to the first episode of this podcast when Charlie Brewer was a true freshman, and I said he should be starting? I said he should be starting? I said it? Okay.
It's a shame that the internet lives forever. I'm pretty sure that
Charlie Brewer was great for us. And
I'm gonna go find that clip. We're gonna find the clip from the first season of Please Bear With Me when I said it. Charlie Brewer should be the guy, and everyone mocked me.
But you embellish a little bit. Honestly, you think people are like the greatest thing ever.
It's true.
Wait, it's like I thought this whole conversation. This whole conversation started with y'all telling me I should have put him in the bracket, and I was objective.
I said you did a great job with the bracket. I just don't like the naming conventions of the bracket.
He's a gamer. He's gritty. Gets the job done.
White quarterback adjectives.
White quarterback adjectives.
Yep.
All right. Goodness.
We for real got to check receipts on that though.
I'm serious. I've got it. We'll find it. We'll do it.
Okay, just
We'll do
making
it.
sure.
I'm wrong on this
Just
one.
making
He's got
sure.
the receipts.
All right, just making sure.
Yeah,
Thank you, Michael. Thank you.
I'm not going on.
Okay, so which region of this bracket is most intriguing to you, and which matchups are most intriguing to you? And I'll just tell you, for me, I think the speed region most intrigues me. I think a lot of guys could come out of there. I know Coco is should be a favorite, but I think a lot of guys should come out of there.
No, the most intriguing one for me, just going through and doing my votes, really was the big man bracket. Personally, for me, when I watch football games, I really like to watch the offensive and defensive lines. I think that tells the story of the game and who's really dominating the game at the offensive or defensive line. And the other intriguing thing is it's really hard to quantify how good an offensive lineman really is, right? There's not a lot of stats out there for an offensive lineman. And then again, defensive linemen, while they do have more stats that they can rack up, it is hard for defensive linemen to actually rack up stats. So when I was going through here and voting on these players, I didn't really have a lot of stats to go off of. And so it was very challenging for me to pick some of these players. But, I mean, Sean Oakman, an 11 seed, right? Phil Taylor. I loved watching Bravion Roy is one of my favorite Baylor players of all time, and he's at 15. So this was just a really fun section of the bracket for me to go through personally.
Speaking of the big man region, I'm pretty sure we have now confirmed we need to do a charity event, and Ganaway is going to race K-Dub, and Spencer Drango and Daniel Sepulveda are going to do an Oklahoma drill. I'm pretty sure we can get those two things on paper for a charity after tonight.
Yeah, I'm down.
Let's do it.
Drango's. We heard Drango. He says, "I bet I could hit him."
Tell Kendall to show up anytime, anywhere.
Scotty, it sounds like we're bringing back the commentating team, and I'm ready. I'm ready to do what I have
That's
to do.
hilarious.
The one that gets me excited is still the hits region, and I think the hits region is awesome because, I mean, top to bottom, you've got guys who are either All-Americans or All-Conference at almost every single spot, and I think the difference here is that for my generation of younger guys who are looking at this, it's a lot easier to look at some of the older guys on the list there, and you know who those names are, right? Like, you look at it and you're like, Thomas Everett, know who that is. Mike Singletary, obviously I know who that is. But I think there's a little bit more knowledge of the older guys in that bracket, which I think makes those matchups a bit more intriguing when you've got people voting versus, for example, maybe in the speed region where admittedly, you know, some of those names is like, you can tell me they were great, but when you look at the stats because of the difference in football today, it just doesn't translate as well, or it's harder to get the sense for it.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, and going over to the speed region to have Xavier Howard at 13, it is tough, but he's going against a really good guy in Gary Green, who had a phenomenal Baylor career and an NFL career. So it was hard, and I don't envy you or anyone having to vote on these over the next few days. It's a really good thing. I asked ChatGPT to give me a compelling argument of why Terrence Ganaway should be the one that wins it all. And I got a page and a half of notes, but I might not even make it out of the round of 64 with Cody Carlson. So great players in this thing, but it's hard to evaluate talent, especially across different eras, and especially since Baylor has so much success recently, the last 15 years, where we have been really watching football and having a perspective of Allen coming in to give us like, hey, this was really before the game got to where it is today. Makes it, you know, incredibly impactful to be a part of, but there's a ton of guys here that I think can compete with anybody any day.
Yeah, I would encourage voters, if you're looking up stats to decide on your vote and you see maybe an older player that's up there with some of these newer guys, there's something to be said about that, right? Because all the newer guys are going to have more stats. That's just the way it is. So if you see one of these older guys from these older generations that's up there with one of them is Gerald McNeil. He's up there with a bunch of receivers from the Art Briles era. Like, that's you need to take that into account when you're voting.
Unless you're talking about Mike Singletary, who had 232 tackles in one season, I think playing like 9 games. God. So he was averaging like 26 tackles a game, which is some ludicrous number.
Like 662 career tackles.
That's a lot.
That is stupid. College Hall of Fame, NFL Hall of Fame.
It's a lot of hits.
So I know we'll talk about who's going to win it all. It's hard to argue with him being the most dominant Baylor football player, Baylor athlete of all time, and then Robert Griffin being the most program transformational player of all time. And if those two are not your top two, I think it's hard to justify putting anyone else, regardless of how you feel and how they made you feel when you're in middle school and you're seeing your first, Baylor player you remember by name. Those guys truly transcended our program to a different level, and their names still are echoed in the halls of Baylor University.
If you guys could pick one player in this field that folks need to go really do their research, hey, before you make a snap decision and vote, who's the one guy you need to study up on? And for me, I think it's James Francis.
You stole mine. I mean, absolutely. The dude was freakishly dominant, and he's mine.
Yeah, I think it's James Francis. And then I would say, too, one of the clips I actually left out of tonight's episode, and I'll probably include it next week, is I got Lefevre talking for about 5 minutes about that 2-quarterback offense that Carlson and Mickey split under Grant Taff. I think it really says something that those guys split time their entire college career. Both ended up playing in the NFL. Carlson, a starter for the Houston Oilers. And when you look at their numbers, you have to take that into account as they were splitting time. If you go look at their numbers, you're going to go, why did they make this bracket? But if you go really think about, I remember we would joke in college about running what if the somebody took Tim Tebow and Tony Romo and you ran a 2-quarterback offense. You had a right-hander and a left-hander. And, that's not what Grant Taff was doing. But Grant Taff, for a period of time, those dudes were swapping plays. And then for a period of time, they were swapping drives. But, I mean, if you can imagine, he was subbing them in, swapping plays as if they were a receiver or any of these other positions that platoon in and out. Never been done before anywhere else that I know of. And so I would say, man, go study up on those guys. Yeah, but you should vote for Terrence Ganaway over Cody Carlson. Obviously.
Yeah, no, it won't. I'll still sleep well. But another person who's in the 2 seed, but Thomas Everett is a really great guy. I don't think he gets out of that region because of Mike Singletary. But I don't know if they're on the same side. If they're on the same side, it'll be even tough to get to the Final Four.
No, they're the 1 and the 2 in that, okay. So they're across from each other.
Okay, yeah. But the dude had 325 tackles at safety and 12 interceptions, played big-time ball, won a couple of championships with the Dallas Cowboys as well. So he's one of the guys that you need to study up on. And Scotty reminded me earlier that he won the first ever Jim Thorpe Award. So super talented guy. It's a lot of people here that you should do research on if you can find it.
I would encourage folks to look at those guys from the early to mid 2000s that are in this list, because maybe the hardest period to be a Baylor fan, but also, when you've got guys who are all Big 12 players from that period and your team wins 2 games, those guys can play some football.
Jordan Lake
is one of those guys. Joe Pa's one of those guys, right? Like these dudes who are all Big 12 selections for that period, it's like when your team is bad, but you're still shining as one of the best in the conference, there's something to be said for those guys.
Gary Bachelor's in that range as well.
Who are some Cinderellas who could make a run? So not just thinking about because all these players are good, right? But who do you look at the way the bracket lines out and you're like, ooh, that's a low seed that could actually sneak up on some people. I actually legitimately think Jordan Lake is one.
Xavier Howard is my pick. And the reason why is, one, he was incredible at Baylor. In fact, I'll tell you a quick story. Scotty Swingler came back from spring practice when Xavier Howard first showed up and
his
said,
freshman year,
when he was a freshman, and said, "Hey, this guy's Xavier Howard. He's going to be really good." And we were like, "Sure, Scotty," because if you know Scotty, you know that Scotty sees a dude make one play in one game, and he's like, "He's the greatest of all time," which sometimes it works out. This is one of those times when it worked out. but also because
I was right about Charlie Brewer also.
The amount of success that he's had in the pros, I think you're going to see some people give him some extra credit beyond just his Baylor career, which was stellar in and of itself.
Yeah, I mean, as a 13 seed, he is the definition of a dark horse. I don't know how the rest of the bracket, that region looks, but yeah, I think primacy, recency, and the guy played at a high level and has played at a high level even in the NFL.
You guys stole my answers, honestly.
There we go.
Doing good work.
Two more things before we close this thing out. I want to show you. These are the guys who I found this to be a distinction that's helpful. And some of these guys are not seated super high. So I think as we look at some matchups, these are guys that could sneak up and get some wins. Throw up that unanimous All-American slide. These are Baylor's all-time unanimous All-Americans. This is all of them. And so unanimous means all the way across the board. So there's consensus All-American, which means like the consensus of all the media outlets, the vote. This is unanimous. Everyone says you're one. You're one of one. Bill Glass, Mike Singletary, Thomas Everett, Santana Dotson, Daniel Sepulveda, Terrence Williams. I forgot T-Will was a unanimous All-American. That one was the one I'd forgotten about. Cyril Richardson, Corey Coleman, obvious, Spencer Drango, and James Lynch. Bill Glass, an 8 seed in this tournament. I think a lot of that is my own era bias, and you're nodding excitedly, Travis. Any thoughts on Bill Glass?
Yeah, like going back to the last two questions we talk about, like who do people need to research and who's a dark horse in this bracket? It's Bill Glass. Really, if people want to go and do their research, there's a strong case that can be made that he will give Andrew Billings a run for his money.
Dang, there you go. Williams and Cyril are 6 seeds. I credit that more to the depth of their region more than what's going on here. But yeah, could be argued I underseeded some of those guys for sure. If you look between Glass, Sepulveda, Richardson, and Drango, and Lynch, and Dotson, all Big Men region.
Wow.
All Big Men region. So a lot of unanimous All-Americans
deep
end up in that Big Men region. Okay, guys, here it is. Who do you think makes the Final Four?
I mean, listen, Corey Coleman is my favorite player out of the speed region, but I can see someone else sneaking up. A lot of talented guys there, Xavier Howard, Kendall Wright, Terrence Williams. But I think 2 locks are Mike Singletary and Robert Griffin. And then and that big man, I think it's a toss-up. There's 5 or 6 people that can rise to the top out of there. And I think that's where you see some of these seeded upsets because I don't think any of these are true upsets. But I don't know. I got Robert Griffin and Mike Singletary, and then I have no idea about the rest.
I think it's hard to argue against RG3 and Mike. But, you could say Terrence Ganaway could make a run there. I really feel good about that.
I bet Terrence Ganaway could outrun. Do you think you could beat Robert Griffin III in a foot race?
He beats Eagles like flying. No, like they're like the fastest, one of the fastest. No. But Kendall Wright, absolutely.
I think it's going to be Drango out of the Big Men region. And then, man, the speed region's so hard because, there's a part of me that obviously wants to say Corey Coleman, but, I really think it's probably going to be Kendall Wright.
Yeah,
I think there's a deep love of Kendall Wright that I think is a bit different as far as people's connection to him and connection to the teams that he was on.
100%. Kendall Wright is my pick to come out of that region. He is the leading receiver in Baylor history, period. Right? RG3 isn't where he is without Kendall Wright. Right?
Or Terrence Ganaway.
Exactly right. It's Terrence Ganaway's speed at that.
Yes.
But yeah, Kendall Wright, absolutely loved by the Baylor community and by me personally, my favorite Baylor receiver of all time. Was nice enough to come down to the Letterman's Lounge with my sister and take photos with her when he was down there. So I have a very special place in my heart for Kendall. The Big Men region, coming out of there is my favorite defensive lineman of all time, James Lynch. I think James Lynch is going to make it. He's the leading sack. The leading sacker in Baylor history. I think he's going to end up in the Final Four along with Mike Singletary, Robert Griffin III, and Kendall Wright.
All right.
Yeah, I think that big man region is going to be
It's fun.
All right,
I think it's going to be a DT.
Put me back on this camera, Travis. I'm going to make my bold predictions here. We're going out on a limb. Here we go.
Look him into the camera. Look him in the eyes.
I'm looking right in the camera. Robert Griffin III is going to win the backfield region. I think that's easy.
Set up.
Daniel Sepulveda is going to win the big man region. I'm calling it. 1, it's going to be a meme. 2, there's just so many players or Baylor fans that love him. He got a lot of nominations in our nomination form. I think Daniel Sepulveda is going to piss off all these big guys and win the big man region as a punter. Speed region is hard. I will tell you, Robert Griffin, the other day on 365 Sports with David Smoke, said that if he had to have a first down, he's throwing it to Terrence Williams. I thought that was an interesting answer. I thought that was interesting. I expected him to say Kendall.
But Art Browse is going to call the play to Kendall, though. I mean, it doesn't matter what. Kendall's going to be open.
Let me tell you something. The one time that I can remember that he definitely needed a first down, RG3 caught the pass himself.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's true. That's true. He did. I think speed region's the hardest to predict. I think I'll just go chalk. I think Corey Coleman will win it. I think that Blitnikoff puts you over the edge. I think there will be a lot of upsets in that region. I think that will be fun. Here's my pick, my bold prediction. Because of the demographic that I think will be more inclined to watch what we're doing here and go online and vote, and because he was by far the most nominated player in the nomination forums, I think Jalen Petrie is going to win the hits region.
Ooh.
I'm not saying it's right. I'm not saying he's a better Baylor all-timer than Mike Singletary. How dare I ever suggest?
Mike Singletary is going to come break Scotty's helmet.
But I think Jalen Petrie, recency bias, demographic of folks who are going to be inclined to watch this.
The man who stayed.
The guy who stayed. And, 3 seed in the deepest region in the tournament. Freaking legend in his own right.
So
I think Jalen Petrie gets out of the hits region.
If he's a 3 seed, does he? He's on the opposite side of my Singletary. So
yeah,
my
he would be
1-4-2.
Well, so I think the most intriguing matchup would be Everett and Petrie.
Yeah.
If they both win chalk, because those are very similar players. Everett more of a traditional safety who could play deep coverage. Petrie more of a get to the line of scrimmage, disrupt things in the backfield, as well as a turnover machine. Everett, of course, won the Thorpe Award. Petrie was a finalist for the Thorpe Award, but didn't win it. That's a fascinating, and it's just an eras thing, man. If you watch Thomas Everett play, you're going to vote for Thomas Everett, and you're not going to think about it. But for a lot of the younger guys, Petrie is, you could argue, the best defensive player of this millennia at Baylor. You could certainly make that argument.
What position he play?
Linebacker, safety, bear,
safety,
every single one.
Nickel, whatever they needed him to. He only played fewer positions than Blake Lynch, who did not make this field, but I wish he had.
Team doing
wide
stuff,
receiver, corner, safety, and linebacker, and nickel,
and running back, and quarterback at practice. I think he played 7 positions while at Baylor.
Yeah, he was
Blake Lynch.
Yeah,
he was great.
Yeah.
He played safety, corner, linebacker for sure. Running back, receiver. I know he took snaps at quarterback in practice. I don't think he ever did in a game.
Beast Texas, folks. That's right.
You heard it first.
Kick return.
How many
punt return. He returned kicks and punts.
Are from Northeast Texas, Scotty? Have you looked it up yet?
If you want to go through our bracket and designate where all of them are from, you're welcome to do that. Okay. I had a lot of other things I was doing.
You know what I'm saying?
We need a heat map with regions highlighted.
We do. That would be fun.
I think we probably have
Travis, you know what, Travis?
That's on you. Michael, that's on
Travis,
you.
if you want to make that, you can.
No,
most players per capita, Northeast Texas.
Yeah.
Guys, this has been a ton of fun. We've been at this for 2.5 hours. Some of you have to drive back to your homes that are not in Waco. God bless you for being here. Hey, thanks so much for watching. This has been a blast. It's been a lot to introduce these brackets, but we're going to start voting tomorrow at 8 a.m. I'll publish the link on Twitter. Follow us on Twitter at PleaseBearW_Matt. me. Follow us. I'll post it there. I'll post it in the description of this video. I'll be releasing these segments on YouTube throughout the week. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel if you want a chance to win a $50 gift card as well as this sick Hydro Flask and a t-shirt to Dichotomy. We're going to do it next week again at 6 o'clock. We'll be live. I'll be here. We'll see what these guys are up to, but we'll do this for 6 weeks and then get ready for the fall. Thanks again for joining us. Thanks to, don't let me forget anybody, by the way, Eddie Lackey, Jordan Lake, Andrew Billings, Spencer Drango, Blake Blackmar, Seth Russell, Terrence Ganaway, Dominique Ziegler. Is that it? I think that's everybody that came on. All the former players who joined us.
You say Jordan Lake?
It was a blast. I did say Jordan Lake. Jordan's already texted me, so I think we're going to have him back this fall to talk some defense. That'll be a lot of fun. For Rogue Media, for Dichotomy, my name's Scotty. This has been Please Bear With Me. We'll talk to you next week.